Good afternoon and welcome. My name is George Dobrea. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I'm an MVP for security for a while. I'm managing a team of pen testers. I'm based in Eastern Europe, but I'm traveling a lot, delivering training and consultancy for different organizations. Well, Kaspersky Labs, it's in my customers list. I visited recently Russia. I was invited this week to speak at the Arab security conference. Unfortunately, I cannot make it because I'm here. Next week, I'm going to deliver a pen testing preparation program for the US Army guys somewhere in Europe. And well, I'm very happy to be with you this evening, this afternoon. We are talking to discuss about how to prepare a very important exam, which is part of the MCSE preparation. Well, this is basically the agenda of our conversation for today. What can I say from the beginning? I hope most of you already passed some MCSA exam. I'm wondering how many of you already MCSA in the room. Well, impressive, almost everybody. So you are now struggling to prepare this exam. And I'm here to help you, right? Well, just a disclaimer. If you are expecting in my presentation to see some funny animations and pictures, happy guys shaking hands or something like that, so please lower your expectations, yeah, because, well, we are talking here just about some exam tips, helping you to probably prepare better for this exam. And, well, how to start? Probably you're already familiar with this picture. If you are looking here, we have the MCSE exams, yeah, for cloud and platform infrastructure and so, and somewhere here, in the bottom part of the elective exams, you could see our exam we're talking about today, right? Okay, so we could expect maybe to have a better position in this list, but it's not so important, yeah. By the way, how many of you had the opportunity to be previously, many years ago, MCSE security? Oh, I see many of you, yeah. At the time, we had a dedicated certification, and at least I'm very happy because we finally do have a security exam in the Microsoft MCSE track, right? Maybe different exams are coming soon in the track, expecting probably one for Azure security. Yeah, probably, yes. Okay, so we are ready to prepare for an exam and to earn the MCSE badge for security. Okay, good. Probably you are familiar already with this picture. Layers of security in Windows Server 2016. So what we can see here, a lot of new stuff. A lot of new stuff. So many features, new security features, and all of them are included in the exam we're talking about. So different layers, organized in 4 different layers, but you could see a lot of new features. And actually, most of those features are new, pretty new, in Windows Server 2016. Most of them covered in Windows 10 as well, available in Windows 10, but we're discussing more about the features, including new features included in Windows Server 2016. Well, this is actually The exam, yeah, you can see in this picture the main exam objectives. Yeah, we're going to take one by one to discuss a bit more, to cover a bit more. You'll see I'm intending not to insist too much on the features that you have already in Windows Server 2012 or Windows Server 2028, for example, because some topics like setting up firewalls or even BitLocker or encrypted file system are very common topics for, yeah, you most probably are very familiar with those topics already. Well, let's start the conversation about the first one, implement server hardening solutions. It's an important one. You could see we have 6 main topics, main exam objective, but this one, yeah, it's very important. A high percentage of the questions you are expecting could come from this, related to this topic, yeah. Well, the first topic related to this exam objective, it's about configuring disk and file encryption. Let's analyze a bit the topics here. Something new in Windows Server 2016? Maybe not so many new topics, yeah, because we're covering BitLocker, and you should be familiar with BitLocker. It's not something new. We're covering as well encrypted file system, which is actually even older topic. Yeah, they started in Windows 2000, I think it was the first implementation of encryption file system. But you could see some topics that I'm considering to insist a bit more. For example, configure the network unlock feature, which it was available in Windows Server 2012, but not so many people already familiar with this one. For example, implementing BitLocker on cluster share volume, CSV, and storage area networks. Well, what else I could see? Yeah, probably some options, new options, including backup or restore of encryption file system keys and BitLocker certificates and so on. BitLocker. I guess everybody in the room already familiar with BitLocker. Yeah, that is not something new. You know how it's working, BitLocker. You know it's better to have a TPM module on all machines. You are implementing BitLocker. So, by the way, it's BitLocker something very common for Windows servers, for the server machines in the data center. Well, actually not very often you could see, but now it's an incentive, and Microsoft is pushing very strongly this initiative to make the hardware makers to include a TPM module in their hardware of the servers here. Well, it's something you have to consider. Why? Because we're using TPM modules, yeah, for different features, not only for BitLocker. Yeah, it's very important. And even it was not very familiar to have such hardware, piece of hardware in a hardware device, yeah, used for the server. You know, I mean in a server. But now they started to have TPM modules included in the hardware of servers. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not insisting here. You are familiar with the recovery mechanism, 48-digit key, and so on. Well, how to establish BitLocker drive encryption policy in Windows Server 2016, PowerShell. So just a general specification for this exam, and I think I'm not saying something very new for you. You should be very familiar with PowerShell for this exam. Yeah. Actually, PowerShell is one of my favorite topics in the presentations. I'm doing a lot of presentation how to use PowerShell for hacking. Especially in advanced and persistent threat scenarios. It's not the major topic for us, for our conversation today, but for this exam, you should be very familiar with advanced features in PowerShell. Why? Because most of the features we're talking about security, we're considering to prepare for this exam, are configurable only using PowerShell. There is no GUI interface in order to configure a lot of things. Yeah, you are very happy if you could see a GUI interface in group policy or so to manage some of the security features, but most of them are covered only using PowerShell. Yeah. Okay, so we have, for BitLocker drive encryption policy, we have as well group policy settings. You can configure this using TPM or using a PIN code, and so different options we do have. Well, network unlock feature, yeah, it was. It's of course available in Windows Server 2016. It was present in the first time implemented in the previous version of the Windows Server. Actually, in order to configure network unlock, you need some requirements in the network. And for the exam, you should be prepared. Yeah, you should be aware about the requirements, and not very few requirements. Yeah, UEFI, DHCP, for example, configuring DHCP server, no compatibility support modules available, so just legacy mode disabled and UEFI. Yeah, you need WDS, Windows Deployment Services, yeah, in your DHCP as well. You need some certificates, PKI, and so you have to configure group policy settings in order just to make this feature to be available. I mean, you can unlock BitLocker protected drives on specific computers on a server without being necessary to provide a PIN when the computer is started. In implementation requesting TPM and as well a PIN protection. Yeah, and you must be able to handle these questions related to this. Another feature you should be prepared to answer some questions in the exam is this one: how to recover from Active Directory. Well, the recovery keys from BitLocker. Yeah, we have such a feature. You have to configure settings in group policy options. You should be able to see the BitLocker recovery key somewhere there. So this is available. The recovery key is available to administrators in your Active Directory environment. And be aware that, and I think troubleshooting, yeah, they're requesting for the exam to be familiar with troubleshooting of this feature. Yeah, I think we have some additional discussion about this in the next slide. Well, you should be familiar for the exam as well with this tool, BitLocker Administration and Monitoring tool, that you have. It's a part of the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack. And it's providing end-to-end automation for BitLocker, yeah, like key retrieval, agent-based user guidance. So, yeah, you can do everything. It's integrated with PowerShell and SCCM. Yeah, and you must be able to, you have reports, you have monitoring for BitLocker implementation in your environment, so you must be familiar with this tool. So, about encryption file system. All stuff, I think it's well known here. There are no new features in Windows Server 2016. However, you'll see some questions in the exam because it's included in the exam topics. So the only change is about the encryption protocols used because, you know, many years ago they started with, it was DAS standard, a modified DAS, but now we're using advanced encryption standard. And even it's available in Windows Server 2016, and this is important. This is a new encryption protocol, XTS, Advanced Encryption Standard, because XTS is compatible with FIPS, yeah, Federal Information Protection Standard. And this is new. For example, if you are using this, you can change the settings in order to use XTS AES in encryption protocol. But okay, those files are not available. Encrypted files, they are not available in previous versions of the Windows Server to be decrypted, to have access to. Well, here I'm not insisting because everything is well known. Please make sure you understand the difference between the BitLocker and encryption file system. So which one it was implemented first? Encryption file system, of course, many years ago. Why? Because at the time, the hardware is not so, it was not so fast in order to allow you on a regular machine to encrypt the full drive. And instead, they prefer to encrypt file by file, yeah, including the encryption to be a dedicated process of encryption of a singular file, individual file, yeah. But now we are using BitLocker. It's not impacting the performance, and however, you should be prepared to take some questions, to answer some questions. Where is more, in which situation it's more efficient to use encryption file system comparing to BitLocker, yeah. Because even BitLocker is more popular, honestly, right now, yeah. But there are some particular situations you are invited. Maybe it's better to use encryption file system, yeah. Okay, so another another thing to consider when you're talking about encryption file system is the recovery agent, how to implement a recovery agent, how to export that certificate, do not store that certificate, including the private key, which is that certificate which is automatically assigned to the first domain admin on the first domain controller you are installing a domain. Yeah, to be familiar with the procedures for recovery. So BitLocker recovery, it's easier, yeah. But encryption file system is not so easy to handle, yeah. Okay. So about implementing server patching and updating solutions, not sure if we could find something new here, yeah, because I'm pretty sure that everybody is very familiar with Windows Server Update Services. It's not connected to a particular version of Windows Server, so we have the same versions. However, please check your knowledge, because yeah, questions coming from here, how to set up especially computers groups, how to set up approvals, deployment. Actually, this topic is not new for this exam, because you had in the first exam, or in even different exams, in the MCSA track, this is included, this topic is included, yeah, about WSAS, yeah. Configuring reporting, this is important, configuring reporting, and troubleshooting. Be aware that there are a lot of questions related to troubleshooting in our exam. And troubleshooting is not anytime something to handle very easy. Yeah, you should be familiar with a lot of topics, you have to memorize, and you have to practice something, yeah, related to this. For example, we'll have some topics related to troubleshooting. Yeah, troubleshooting. What to do in a particular scenario, for example, then when you cannot connect to WSAS server, and so checking the protocols, or even, for example, when WSAS is stopping, you should even reinstall WSAS. Okay, quite easy, but yeah, you should be prepared to answer such questions. Well, another topic in the first objective of the exam, remember that it's a big one, implementing malware protection. So main topics, if you were reading a bit here, the main topics: Windows Defender, App Locker. Well, familiar topics, right? Not something new or, yeah, suspicious here, I can say. Okay, but you can see in the bottom here, you could see something that it's really new in Windows Server 2016, like implementing control flow guard, implement code integrity device guard policies, policy rules, code integrity file rules. It's about device guard. Yeah, it's about device guard, and we're going to discuss a bit more about this. By the way, you could notice maybe in some of the slides presenting some exam topics, you can see a small guy struggling, digging a lot, yeah, to prepare to handle the questions here. Okay, So, Windows Defender. Some topics you should be prepared to handle, because I'm pretty sure that everybody knows how to configure Windows Defender, real-time protection, and so cloud-based protection, and so you have to be familiar with the settings there that are really new settings we had now before in the previous versions of Windows Server. The options like we do have in settings here. Be familiar with the integration of Windows Defender and software update service. How to configure automatically updating the signature files and so the updates. Configuring the group policy settings for Windows Defender and PowerShell. We have a module. You could see here a lot of commandlets, including something like here you should see a lot of commandlets including MP here. Yeah. That is a module including the Defender defending Defender commandlets. And you should be familiar how to handle the questions in the exam. Yeah. How to configure everything in Windows Defender using just PowerShell. About App Locker. So App Locker is not a new feature as well. Actually, we had one even older, software restriction policies. Yeah, if you remember, maybe more than 10 years ago. App Locker rules, how to build App Locker rules, rule types. Yeah, we have for different rules. You can establish different rules for executable files, for Windows installer files, yeah, for scripts, including PowerShell scripts. Yeah. For package app rules for universal apps, DLL rules as well. So we have more options to build dedicated rules for separate type of files. Attributes, file version, file name, product, publisher name, and so. Well, not insisting here because App Locker it should be very familiar to all of us. But this is new. Control Flow Guard. Well, it's a feature of Windows Server 2016? Not actually. Not actually. It's just an option to configure by developers in Visual Studio. Yeah? When they are going to configure the apps to run, they should include this option, if the application is dedicated, is going to run on CFG aware versions of Windows, including Windows Server 2016, to include this option. That is an option before compiling a file, and you have the opportunity to test dump bin. It's executable commandlet. You are able to test if your app it's supporting Control Flow Guard feature. So the components are data execution prevention if the operating system and the hardware supporting this. Okay, and ASLR, address space layout randomization as well. Yeah. Okay. So actually, it's doing something very similar that Enhanced Mitigation Experience Toolkit it's doing. This new feature, Control Flow Guard. So it's something to configure in the applications that are going to run on Windows Server 2016. So an important topic, it's this one about Device Guard, Windows Defender Device Guard. So Device Guard, it's actually an enhanced version of App Locker. It's creating more complex opportunity to build whitelists, to do whitelisting for applications. Yeah, that's basic, and it's including as well can include different scenarios, even more complex scenarios. For example, including checking the hardware. If the hardware is compatible, if a particular application is compatible with a particular type of hardware, And you have to consider in the implementation, you have to consider some policies, you have to consider policies for whitelisting the applications. And for whitelisting, we have even more options compared to AppLocker. You have established some file rule, code integrity file rules, for example. So the basic idea is when you're implementing device guard policies, checking anytime if even the hardware is supporting that application, and not only for the code integrity for that application. So you are able to establish more complex rule in order to create a list of applications allowed to run on a particular device. And of course, we're managing most of the options for device guard. We are managing using PowerShell. There is no other option to manage. For example, if you are installing some applications on a reference computer, and after that you are actually extracting the configuration from there in a policy, for a policy code integrity policy, and based on this you are checking new devices if they are compatible with this policy. Well, it's a complex topic. You are not, for the exam, you don't have to manage everything very well because it's a very complex topics, and Microsoft is still working on this to make this feature, device guard, to be more friendly, because now it's not very friendly. If you're looking at the interface, you have to implement different features, including using just PowerShell and so configuration files and so. But they are not, for the exam, they are not expecting you to be familiar end to end. With all implementation, but just to have an idea what it's about, how it's working, and so. By the way, an interesting topic is if I'm going to use device guard, should I still use AppLocker or not necessary? This is a good question. Yeah, even device guard may be seen like an successor, more advanced feature compared to AppLocker. There are still some scenarios you're invited to use both of them. For example, if you're considering a universal application to be installed on a device, using device guard, if the application is compatible, application is signed, code integrity is checked, is compatible with the hardware. So you are not blocking, device guard is not blocking installation of that application on your machine. And in some shadow IT scenarios, are you familiar with shadow IT? Probably yes, yeah, most of you. What is shadow IT? Yeah, well, we're talking about the ability of our users in our IT environment to install applications not in the list of the approved application. Why? Because they're connecting using their own devices in a bring your own device implementation, and if the application is trusted, it's somewhere published in a store, in a legitimate store, they are able to install it. Yeah, it's not like applying a very strict group policy settings. Yeah, they are able to install that application. And maybe that application is not allowed by the business policies in organization. Yeah, this is the idea of shadow IT. Yeah, and actually, device guard is not blocking. If the application is trusted, somewhere in the store, it's published somewhere in the store, it's signed, it's digital, it's signed, it's compatible with the hardware. Yeah. User able to install that application. So instead, if you don't want, for example, such universal apps to be installed on your devices, I mean, servers, because we're talking about Windows Server, you have to add some AppLocker policies in the top of device guard policies. So this is an example. You can continue to use AppLocker in your environment even if you are relying on device guard policies. Yeah. Okay, so protect credentials. Credential guard. Well, and how to configure the credential guard. And there is a topic here in the bottom about implementing anti-alarm blocking. Yeah, credential guard. So what is credential guard? You are storing anti-alarm on Kerberos secret in an isolated local security LSA process. So actually, the hashes of the credentials are not accessible to any local admin on the machine because the credentials are not stored in the LSA subsystem, right? Subsystem service. So instead, the credentials are stored somewhere in a small virtual machine and accessible not to any local admin. In order to implement this, you have your hardware to support UEFI and TPM as well to store the secrets there. You have to implement GPO group policy settings supported by WMI queries, and so it's a very efficient way to protect the local credentials. Actually, credential guard, it's just I can say it's a subsystem of device guard. Yeah, we had a previous a short discussion about this. Yeah, you could see credential guard like an additional subsystem. I mean a subsystem included in device guard. Yeah, about anti-alarm blocking. Well, anti-alarm blocking, it could be very useful because if you want to rely only on Kerberos, so there is an option to limit and to restrict using anti-alarm in group policy, right? There are different options there. You can restrict usage, anti-alarm usage in most organizations, so you don't want anti-alarm credential to be stored, doesn't matter, yeah, in LSA system or in the virtualization-based security system, right? Okay, so next topic about creating security baselines. So a tool that you should be familiar with this for the exam, Security Compliance Manager. It's a dedicated topic. You have to be familiar with this tool. Well, it's a dedicated tool you are installing. At this time, we have already, because previously the templates were not available templates for Windows Server 2016 and for Windows 10. And this tool, it's version 4, Security Compliance Manager version 4. You can download it. You can see template. If you are looking particularly here, what you can see, just a second, yeah, you can see here default configuration, Microsoft configuration, and the customized configuration that actually you can work. So it's particularly a version, you do remember maybe security templates before we have all tools in Windows, but this security compliance manager, it's basically a new version for this. You have the opportunity to import settings for some templates. How? So using group policy backup. So if you want to, you have the opportunity to import some settings using group policy backup. If you have a reference computer, for example, if you want to export, you are exporting the group policy settings, and after that you will be able to import group policy settings from the backup. You are importing on this tool, Microsoft Security Compliance Manager. You have as well the opportunity to work with Security Compliance Manager files, dedicated files, CAB files. The extension is CAB, yeah, for those files, dedicated files. You have the opportunity to export in Excel, in GPO backup folder, back, yeah. Even SCAP, Security Content Automation Protocol, which is a standard, yeah, SCCM, for example. So you have multiple options to configure the security settings, to import, export security settings and such. Templates, by the way, templates you could find here are read-only. So in order to modify directly a template, you should duplicate. You have the option to duplicate, and after that, you're good to configure all options there. Yeah. Okay. So as well, you should remember this tool, lgpo.exe. It's a command line utility to automate the management of local group policy objects. Yeah, local group policy objects. Because we had one which is deprecated, it's not recommended. So you probably, if you could see in the new exam, you could see some questions about LGPO tool. Please make sure you're familiar, you know how to use this tool. Well, this is basically the first exam objective, a long one. Okay, let's go for the next topics. The next topic is this one, secure virtualization infrastructure. The first topic here, exam topic, it's guarded fabric solution. Implement a guarded fabric solution. So information about how to use this role, how to implement it. What is about guarded fabric? So it's based on the virtualization infrastructure, and you are installing in the machine. You are installing first the host guardian service. Actually, it's recommended to install basically a cluster of 3 nodes to build a host guardian service safe harbor forest. Yeah. Actually, it's about a new Active Directory forest that you are going to install, and if you're installing this role on a dedicated machine, that could be a standalone machine. And this is installing on the machine, it will be the first machine in the HGS cluster, and you are installing, it's installing Active Directory service, it's installing clustering, installing Internet Information Services, BitLocker drive encryption, it's installing everything, just installing the role. And it's configuring this cluster. After that, you have to consider, you have to implement a one-way external trust between the isolated host guardian service safe harbor forest and the production forest. Yeah, this is mandatory to use. And we are using 2 attestation modes, TPM trusted attestation or admin trusted attestation. So you know the issue that guarded fabric is solving. It's basically protecting the virtual environment from malicious admins, and as well machines to be exported or just copied from a data center and started on another host machine which is not trusted. Yeah. In a such scenario, for example, we do have some more explanation in the next slides. So if an user, we have actually 2 kinds of administrators. One is the fabric administrator, I mean the environment of the environment of the virtualization environment, and another one is a workload administrator, which is the normal admin of virtual machines doing all the stuff, administration stuff. It should have access to the machine. So basically, the fabric admin should be able to access machines, but not to access content. Should be, for example, in a typical scenario, fabric administrator in a Hyper-V environment should be able just to start the machine, maybe, but not having any access to the content of the machine. Maybe we don't trust this guy, especially in the cloud environment when you have multiple tenants. You don't want, for example, the Hyper-V administrator to have access to the machines. You know, we have a new feature like PowerShell Direct. And this PowerShell Direct feature maybe is not something you should see in a such protected environment. You don't want to let the local, the admin of the virtual environment to have access to the protected, to have access to the machines, to the content, and so to manage everything here. And we have 2 different scenarios. I mean, for example, when you're installing Guardian host role, yeah, here is our cluster. First of all, the machine is checking the first process is attestation. Should this machine be started, virtual machine be started on a particular virtual host? I mean, virtual host, on a particular host. Yeah? And you are limiting, actually, the machines. That machine, it will be checked. Attestation is checking if the machine must be started on a particular host. If that machine, it was copied, for example, stolen from somewhere, and somebody is starting to install this machine here and to make it running, doesn't work. And the attestation, this process of attestation, it's using two different options. One is based on just admin. I mean, for example, the machine you are starting, the virtual machine you are trying to start, must be in a dedicated group in Active Directory. Or this is admin attestation. And another one is based on the TPM. So it's checking the hardware. I mean, a particular virtual machine, it's running only on a particular host, and the binding it's created using the TPM information. You are trying to launch that machine on another host, doesn't work. Yeah? Okay, this is the attestation process. The second process, should somebody be able to access this machine for administration purpose? I mean, to work on that machine, on the virtual machine? Able to access the content on that machine. And this is another process about we're calling this KPS. It's provided by this key protection service. Even if you are, maybe you are able to start that machine, but you don't have access to the content of the machine in any way. You should not access the content there. Yeah, and this feature, it's provided by this key protection service. Yeah, that enables Hyper-V to run shielded machine or protected machine, because shielded is just an option here. Well, this is the idea of the key protection service. So it's just after attestation. If the attestation succeeds, key protection service, it's decided whether to release a key to start a VM. And this may be available and the machine to be available to the workload admin, for example. Yeah, it's using a certificate system. Yeah, you need some certificates. You need some PKI implementation. Okay, it's working even using some self-signed certificates, but it's not highly recommended. Well, we have here the procedure which is requested. You should be familiar with some information about how to troubleshoot guarded hosts in a host guardian environment. Yeah, there are some information. We will have some dedicated PowerShell scripts for this. You should be able to access a particular link on the KPS server, on a HDS server, providing this feature. So the next topic related to this is shielded or encryption supported virtual machines. So this is just a part, attestation and key providing service. I mean, the machine should run on a particular host. And the second part is that one who is able to access the content on a virtual machine if the machine is started. Yeah? And we have three scenarios here. Yeah, because you can run in a guarded fabric environment. You can run basically a normal machine, not protected, not encrypted. There is no encryption between, there is no protection of access between the host machine and the virtual machine, right? Which is a normal environment, yeah, in most of situations. But we have two additional features: encryption supported virtual machine, and another one is shielded VM. Yeah, what's the difference? Because, for example, encryption supported feature, you could see even in VMware or different providers of virtualization. But this one, shielded VM, it's just at Microsoft available. Yeah. What is about, so you need in order to set up, you need, for example, for a shielded VM, you need basic disk, GUID partition table, you need 2 partitions, you need NTFS. By the way, if we're talking about a shielded VM, there is no way to have access from the Hyper-V management console to that machine. All options are grayed out. You cannot start the machine, you cannot reconfigure the machine, everything gets grayed out. Only a fabric, you, as a virtualization administration, you have no access to any feature in that machine. You cannot configure, you can, only a person, workload administrator, could connect, basically using remote desktop protocol, to have access to that machine. There is no way to have access, local access to that machine. So features like PowerShell Direct, so not working anymore, by the way. Yeah. So most of features are not working. If there is generation, if it's just encryption supported, okay, you could still configure some features like secure boot, virtual TPM. Some features are configurable. Yeah. You, the fabric admin, the fabric admin, I mean, you have some access to the machines. You can configure. As a virtualization administrator, you still have access to some options to configure in the encrypted machine. But still, there is encryption. Yeah. The machine is encrypted to you. You don't have access to most of the features there. So it sounds very comfortable in a environment. Especially the second scenario, that a shielded VM sounds very comfortable if you don't trust too much the virtualization administrator. Yeah, that's a basic scenario we're covering. Yeah, because it's happening. Yeah, for example, you have a large data center and you're hosting virtual machines. Multiple tenants there, and yeah, it should be a definite in isolation. So basically, in a shielded VM, a local virtualization administrator has no access to any feature in Hyper-V. Yeah. Okay. So, good. Next topic: troubleshooting shielded and encryption supported VM. We have some specific topics. Yeah, how to make some diagnostic, and there are some failures in the implementation of host guard service, and so we have some tools in PowerShell. Yeah, you can use in order to check the status, to access some reports, and so on. Okay, just a practice question right now. Okay, you are planning to deploy guarded host. So it's not so complicated to answer to. Yeah, some ideas?
You said that it has to be a separate force, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that would be G, right?
Exactly. Congratulations. Yeah. You have first to disjoin from the domain because you are preparing to install an Active Directory forest separately. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. This is the first step. Excellent. Okay. So the next topic. Configure Windows Firewall. Well, I'm not insisting here because you are familiar with Windows Firewall. Yeah. Advanced firewall, so how to set up profiles, how to implement using group policy. So there is nothing that actually new. How to export the Windows Firewall settings and so. However, this is new, how to implement a software-defined distributed firewall. Yeah, this is actually new. We have, you are installing the network controller role on Windows Server 2016, and you will be able to create a data center firewall based on firewall policies, and well, it's implemented on a network layer, stateful multi-tenant firewall. And so you're familiar with this network controller, northbound interface, southbound interface, and you can make some connections in the virtual machines, inspecting its stateful inspection. So I mean, it's inspected all layers. Yeah. Network security group, it's another feature new in Windows Server 2012. Yeah, it was available first in Azure. Now it's available in the regular implementation of Windows Server 2016. Right, and you could implement access control list rules. Yeah, so you can configure different virtual networks in a virtual environment. Yes, basically. We have a scenario here. You are in the same network of virtual computers, yeah, in a virtual network, Hyper-V based. You are implementing, for example, three different segments, yeah, for separate roles. Yeah. Well, you should be familiar with this. Most of the features, again, configured using PowerShell only. There is no different options to configure using a GUI interface. Well, another topic, secure network traffic, IPsec. Very familiar topic here for everybody, but please make sure you are reviewing how to create secure IPsec policies, how to monitor using advanced firewall, which is not new in this version because we have the opportunity there yeah, you have the options, connection security rules there, monitoring, and main mode, and quick mode, and so please be familiar, please review for the exam such topic like IPsec. So DNS, CEC, yeah. It's about signing the DNS answers. Yeah, it's not new in Windows Server 2016. However, it's a dedicated topic. It's protecting DNS, so it means signing all DNS answers based on the trust answers. So you have to implement, using group policy, you have to implement name resolution policy table. I mean, which answers for specific domains must be signed using a specific certificate, and so you must be familiar with this. DNS policy, this is something new. This is new in Windows Server 2016, DNS policy. You can configure how DNS answers are, well, how to send, how to handle the DNS requests to different DNS servers, and so it's important to, yeah, we have basically a commandlet, add DNS server query resolution policy, and we're doing everything using this. Yeah. But you must be prepared to some options, scenarios, how to use, yeah, you are doing filtering, solving scenarios like split brain DNS, traffic management, redirection, and so using DNS policies. Be familiar with this topic because it's something really new. SMB traffic. So SMB 3.1.1, it's adding, we had previously 3.0, so providing encryption for SMB traffic. Now we have 3.1.1, adding pre-authentication integrity. Well, we're typically handling all configuration of SMB using Windows PowerShell. So be familiar with this, how to set up encryption, how to create shares, and so on and so on. And in the same time, how to disable SMB1, which is very important, yeah, by the way, because you'd remember that attack, WannaCry, and so one of the favorite ways is to propagate attacks using SMB, yeah, if not disabled. So it should be disabled, by the way. Okay, so manage privileged identities. This is another topic very well represented in the exam. Between 25 and 30% of the questions are related to this. Yeah, the first topic here, it's about enhanced security administrative environment, administrative forest design. This is not a product or role or a feature, it's just a collection of principles, design principles. Yeah. Not sure if you remember, maybe some of you, I do remember because I'm an old guy. I do remember Windows NT, for example. It was not possible at the time to establish, well, a forest environment of trust, and anytime we were building, at the time we were building manually the trust between domains and so, and it was a favorite policy to protect the environment at the time, to isolate, to put the administrators in a domain and the resources in another domain and so on. It's about this, yeah, actually. We're doing actually the same. And yeah, we're talking a lot about the clean source principle. Clean source principle means what? It's a philosophy, yeah? They're saying if you're, for example, accessing a protected environment but from an untrusted workstation, this is not according the clean source principle. You should have access to the protected resources just using a clean machine that actually everything on the machine, including the source of the operating system, trusted. Yeah. All software installed on the machine should be trusted. Everything should be checked. You have to include, for example, checking even the hardware, like UEFI, TPM, and so BitLocker. Everything must be clean. And after that, you are good to connect the machine as an administrative account and to do some administrative stuff. Yeah, everything should be. If a single chain, link in this chain is broken, so most probably everything is broken. So we're not talking about a consistent security. So this is basically idea to install a separate forest for the admin accounts to establish one-way trust relationship. And one way, why one way is not a normal two-way relationship? Because, for example, in this scenario, the guys here, they are not able to do any tasks, to perform any tasks here. Just the guys here, admin accounts, they can do the reverse using this one-way trust, right? This is basically. And this is a philosophy. We're running on a secure virtualization fabric, and so implementing device guard, credential guard, BitLockers in order to protect the environment, to protect the workstations, and so on. Even software installation media should be checked. Yeah, I mean, all application, all apps must be signed, yeah, checking for code integrity. Even, you know, we have a big issue with this because sometimes it's not so complicated to publish a fake application using signed using stolen certificate. So it's still difficult to protect all links in the chain, for example. Yeah. Okay. Just-in-time administration. What is just-in-time administration? Well, it's typically an implementation of temporary accounts, administrative accounts, and you are giving to some accounts. It's based on this architecture, and actually using Microsoft Identity Manager, establishing automatically, it's creating, Identity Manager is creating automatically some shadow accounts in the administrative forest, yeah, of the accounts in the normal forest, yeah. And yeah, this is about, it's based on the philosophy of the seed history, yeah, disable seed filtering, and creating shadow accounts in the administrative forest using Microsoft Identity Manager. Yeah, we do have some PowerShell commandlets like PAM user, new PAM group, and so on. And we are assigning the administrative accounts in the administrative forest temporary access. For example, limited to 2 hours or half an hour, for example, to perform some administrative task. After half an hour, they don't have the ability to perform any admin task in the target domain of forest. Yeah. Just enough administration. This is another feature available in Windows Server 2016 and Windows 10 as well. We are creating an environment, especially for PowerShell remote management. Because now, the typical scenario, if an user able to have access to an administrative console of PowerShell can do remotely everything. But using, creating a dedicated limited environment, we're calling this endpoint, you are assigning to an endpoint just very limited commandlets that actually a user accessing remotely a machine can perform. So, for example, able to restart a service but not restart the full machine. Even blocking the ability to read files. You can, for example, you can restart the machine, you can restart services, but you are not able to read a single file from that machine you are connected to using a PowerShell remote console. Yeah? This is about the philosophy behind just enough administration. So you are building a role capability file including just the commands that your admin user connected to a remote machine using PowerShell console, remote console, must be able to do. Just a very limited collection of the commandlets available. And you are creating a session configuration file. You are registering this session configuration file. And after that, you are assigning a user to this endpoint. Enter PSA session. The user is entering this session using that configuration file. And in PowerShell, this guy able to perform only a very limited number of the admin tasks. So you are limiting the ability of remote users in PowerShell. This is a very good feature in order to protect the environment, to protect our remote hosts from PowerShell attacks. So privileged access workstations. What is a privileged access workstation? A computer you are using just for performing privileged tasks, like remote access. You can connect to a server, for example, maybe a jump server, just from a particular machine. And you are limiting the ability to connect for a user, to connect to an admin console from another machine. And so you are just using this, you are using group policy in order to creating some restriction based on the group policy to use. And device guard, app locker policy, BitLocker, credential guards may be used in order to implement this protected access workstation. Yeah. We have some GPO dedicated group policy settings, PowerShell scripts for this. Yeah. Please be familiar with this option. Yeah. We have another feature in Windows Server 2016, which is this one, Windows Defender Remote Credential Guard. What means this? Actually, this is a big threat because, for example, if you're connecting using a remote session, remote desktop session to a machine, a workstation, and from that workstation to another server, yeah, for admin purpose in the multiple hop implementation. So basically, you are sending your credentials to that machine, and that machine can use that. And somebody having control, access to that machine, hacking that machine you are connecting to, can hack the credentials. So the basic idea is using a scenario like Windows Defender Remote Credential Guards, you are not sending anymore the credentials to the remote machine you are connecting to. Well, the Kerberos, the philosophy behind is the Kerberos authentication is sent back to your machine. So you don't have to, you still can solve scenarios like multiple hop connection, but the credentials are not sent to the next remote machine. Instead, previously we had restricted admin mode using remote desktop, and restricted admin mode is just blocking sending the credentials. So you cannot solve anymore. It's protecting your credentials, but it's not valid for a multiple hop scenario. I mean, connecting to a machine and from that machine to connect to another remotely to another machine. So please be familiar with this philosophy. Yeah, both options here. Local administrator password solution. What is this? Well, actually, it's not new. It was in the previous version of Windows Server, but surprisingly, not so many admins are very familiar with this. Yeah, actually, it's implementing a solution for managing the managing the local admin password automatically based on group policy and so, because a big threat for our environment is that one people are setting up the same admin password for multiple machines environment for convenience. And of course, this is a lateral, it's facilitating a lateral attack. If a single password is disclosed, okay, hackers are able to take control of all machines in the environment. Instead, this local administrator password solution, it's establishing a random password for any machine in your network that actually you don't have to set manually. It's changing automatically from time to time. You have to control, you can retrieve this information and so on. But it's a very good solution for such potential attack of lateral attack. Yeah? Okay, so I have here another question. In order to implement the local administrator password solution, well, not sure if it's too complicated, but it's not. In fact, it's not so difficult to answer to. Maybe I can help you because our time it's very limited. So modify the permission for the computer account of finance server A. Why? Because you want to implement random password on this machine, this ability, but this machine should have the ability to write, permission to write in Active Directory, because it's setting up a new password, and this password is stored in an attribute, additional attribute in the Active Directory. So this computer should have the ability to write an Active Directory to modify the value of the new password there. Yeah, that's the basic idea. It's not so complicated, but you have to, it's a bit confusing sometimes, yeah? This, because they say you are installing the PowerShell module for this, but you are not installing labs on this machine. This machine is just a client for this service. Yeah, you are installing a different machine. Okay, so next topic, audit policies. Not insisting here because you are familiar already with audit policy, normal audit policy, using audit poll, and so be familiar with all options in audit poll for the exam. Configure audit PMP activity policy. This is something new. Yeah, because previously, you know, it was possible to log an event when you, first time, when you plug in a new USB device, for example, in the environment. First time you're installing the driver. But now, we have the ability to log an event anytime you are inserting a new USB, maybe a rubber ducky device or something like that, yeah? A malicious USB device. Anytime you are inserting or removing a new USB device, will be logged on event. So this is something new in Windows Server 2016 and Windows 10. So what else? PowerShell auditing and logging. Yeah, we have the ability to configure module logging, script blob logging, transcription logging. For example, I can see here some suspicious activity. Yeah. Okay. I have to just to access my. Well, I want to enlarge my screen. But I have to release my mouse. Yeah, I think I'll be able to do this. Yeah, here. Yeah, here is something malicious. And if I'm implementing script blob logging, yeah, I'll be able to detect what is that malicious script intending to do. So basically, the best protection for PowerShell attacks, it's logging. We have multiple options, 3 options for logging. And, well, this is the best protection you could have. Okay. Install and configure Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics. Well, this is, again, something new. Yeah. ATA. Yeah, must be prepared for the exam to, yeah, you should understand the architecture. You are installing ATA Center, and after that, you have 2 options to monitor all events, especially Active Directory related events like logon events or attempts and so, to temper Active Directory access, logon and so. You have the opportunity to install ATA Gateway, reporting to ATA Center. You have the opportunity to install directly on a domain controller ATA Lightweight Gateway, monitoring directly the logon attempts, for example, on a domain controller, or to install ATA gateway. This is serving more domain controllers. Yeah, you are not installing this in a domain controller, but instead it's using port mirroring feature, and is logging all events related to access to the network, Active Directory, authentication, and so on. And ATA Center is monitoring everything. And it's providing you some information, reports, and so you should be familiar with this, because it was previously for something that's available in Azure, but now we do have on Windows Server. Operations Management Suite, be prepared to have some questions in the exam with this. I'm not insisting here because, you don't need, in order to test OMS, Operation Management Suite, you don't need Azure subscription or something like that. It's a cloud-based service, but you can connect your servers from premises to this in order to have reporting and so on. Yeah, I'm highly inviting you to test it because it's for free. You can do this for free. There is nothing to pay for this for a limited time. And you will see some questions related to this in the exam. I have another example for a practice question here. Basically, you should be familiar with auditing configuration based on PowerShell. Yeah, how to configure everything related to monitoring, and so everything, auditing, Active Directory, and so based on PowerShell, PowerShell options. Okay, and the last topic is this one. Nano server using desired state configuration. Well, you heard that Nano server is going to be limited as functionality in the next, but most probably they're not going to adjust the exam objective very soon. So most probably you still have to learn for the actual environment the topics related to Nano server. How to configure the desired state configuration for Nano server, because Nano server, it can be joined to the domain but cannot be subject of group policy settings. Yeah, that's the basic idea: how to set, how to configure security options, for example, automatically on a Nano server, and so. Containers, there is another topics covered here. Be familiar with Docker, and so. Most of the features you had. Topics, you had to prepare for for different exams in the MCSA track especially, but now they are focusing especially on security features. So it was in the previous exam, MCSA exam, you had questions about how to configure, but here they are focusing more on the security. What kind of security feature it's providing, for example, containers? Yeah. Or Nano server, why it's important to implement Nano server for security. Yeah, you should be able to handle such questions. Dynamic access control, you had probably, if you did pass the exams for MCSA, you had already this topic, but you should be familiar with all those topics: file classification, auditing, and so creating access policies, rules, central access policies, and so on. Okay, so at the end, some exam tips. Focus on PowerShell. You should be familiar with PowerShell, definitely. PowerShell. Be familiar with the abbreviations, because there are a lot of abbreviations, and so even in some documentation, you could see only the abbreviation. You could not see the name of the feature, and so. Be familiar as well with some terminology, name, and so, because Microsoft is changing, for some features is changing the name. I do have an example virtual secure mode, isolated user mode, and virtualization-based security actually covering the same topic. It's different name for the same feature. Yeah, the last one is VBS they are using. Yeah. Virtualization they are using for device guard. Also, new topics in Windows Server 2016 compared to the previous versions. Focus on troubleshooting. A lot of questions in the exam you'll see related to troubleshooting. It's important, this. Focus on understand how it's working instead of just how to do it. Yeah. Practice. Hands-on practice is important, especially for troubleshooting, for example, because if you're not familiar how is work, with a particular topic and implementation of some feature, you are not able to handle the question. Study hard. Okay, learning resources. So the best one is this training, 5 days training. It's a very good one, honestly, and all exam topics are covered here, even in a different orders. The order is not the same as the main exam topics, but covering everything. Okay, this book, which is not bad, is following all the exam objectives. It's a very good one. I'm highly recommending you this. Measure up. There is a test for this. It's available even here. If you are going, it's for free this week. Yeah, just try it. Just try it for free. And it will be, I think, 30% off after the 150 questions, exam related, is not bad. You can have for free, yeah, in the next door room. On MVA, you could see some topics related to security. Yeah, for this one, for example, security for IT Pro, which is very new. Some topics, yeah, you can, very good presentations there on Microsoft Virtual Academy. TechNet Virtual Labs, available as well for free. You can connect anytime to virtual labs there. There are some labs associated to credential guard, so you'll see new features, security features. There are some sessions this week about, for example, device guard, well, and so I'm highly recommending. Unfortunately, some of them, we had some sessions in the morning, but all sessions, they will be available on Channel 9 after the event, so you can attend them. There are some hands-on labs. You can just go downstairs in that immersion area and try to practice them. Well, and I hope to have news from you. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and so I'm expecting some news from you. Of course, if you do have some questions, feel free to address some questions to me, and I'll be very happy to have some news from you. Yeah, I did pass the exam, George. I did pass the exam. I'm very happy. I'm an MCSE. Okay, so thank you very much, and well, don't forget to evaluate this session. You have the opportunity to be a happy owner of the brand new tablet. Yeah, okay. So don't forget to evaluate the session, and well, good luck, and see you again. Thank you.